Hey everyone, welcome to Tea and Therapy. And as you know, well, you're probably seeing that the name has changed. For those that have come across from my other channel, you will know why that has changed. But this was something which I started on the other channel, which was always going to be about sort of mental health, helping people, bringing in celebrity, things that are happening in the celebrity world to sort of correlate between the two. So to give you some understanding and examples. Somewhere along the way it segued into the Harry and Meghan stuff, and it's kind of stayed there. So what I decided that I was going to start a secondary channel, which was going to be what I originally wanted the channel to be. So whereas my other channel is called Tea and Tea, so then there is a connection between that one and this one because it's me, but also because that is truth and talking and aspects of psychology. This one is going to be my original idea of tea and therapy, where we sit down with a cuppa, doesn't have to be tea, and we just talk about all things mental health. And like I say, I'll bring in celebrity aspects of it as well. However, I will say this is going to be a Harry and Meghan free zone. So if you do want things regarding Harry and Meghan, maybe check out my other channel. If you're here just for the therapy, mental health aspect of things, life coaching, anything that's around that area, then this is the channel for you. So in this one, I'm going to be talking about what a few people have said to me is, are narcissists created, as in their environment, or are they born? So this seems like a good topic to talk about. So if you want to join me in this, then please do. And now, so if you want to join me in this, let's dive right in. So when discussing narcissistic behavior, there are certain differences in the fact that there are people that have narcissistic personality disorder, which can then, in a sense, broaden to sociopathy and psychopathy. But we also can have people that have narcissistic traits. A lot of us can have narcissistic traits. Can they be changed? Yes, absolutely. Because if you have a narcissistic trait, the chances are that's potentially come from somewhere. It's a learnt behavior, or it's come from somewhere else. But you have that self-awareness to, especially if somebody picks you up on it, to think, okay, that's not great, I would like to look into that. So the type of people that would come to therapy would be people that present narcissistic traits in, say, some kind of relationship. However, if you have narcissistic personality disorder, and then you are, like I say, you can be bordering on in the sociopathy and psychopathy, you will never get somebody like that would come to therapy unless they feel that it's a means to an end. For example, if they're in a situation and they haven't quite decided to leave that situation, their potential victim, they could go along to therapy as a means to, in a way, put on that front of showing that, I'm taking the relationship seriously. So I do want to do something about that. However, what they will do is they will try to upstage the therapist. So they will act as if they know more than what the therapist does. Or if the therapist then digs too deeply and tries, in a sense, starts to expose them, they will then decide that the therapist is no good, it's not working, or they will come up with something to disparage the therapist. And I've even had myself the experience where they will then also go on and they will write a horrible review about you. They will go off and they will try to damage your career even. This can very much happen, but it's very unusual for a narcissistic personality type to come to therapy, because they generally do not believe there's anything wrong with them. It's everybody else. So going with the theory of, are they born or are they created? Well, in a way, it's both. So your environment, like somebody that's growing up, or they have been in an environment, then yes, that can predetermine narcissistic a personality disorder. And as you know, there are plenty of famous people out there, Amber Heard being one of them, Jessie Smollett, and Armie Hammer, I believe, and obviously I think they are bordering on the sociopathy, perhaps in some areas psychopathy. But there have been studies, and I want to refer to my notes because even though I know some of these things, I want to make sure that I get it right. And especially suffering from the menopause, I have brain fog moments, which are not fun. So when you are looking into narcissistic personality types, studies have been done that suggest that there is something very damaged within the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex. And this is what regulates emotional responses. Let me just make sure I get this right. Oh, sorry, just knocked my light. It's problem solving, comprehension, impulse control, emotions, creativity, and perseverance. And if this is damaged, it can very much affect having empathy. So what you will find, especially with narcissists, is they might mimic empathy to get what they need, but they don't actually experience it. And you can sometimes even find this with autistic people. So even though they are not what I would call, they don't have narcissistic personality disorder, but they can mirror similar traits because of the fact that their prefrontal cortex is damaged or it's smaller. So going back to narcissism, so this, yes, this can happen, but a lot of the time this then does develop into sociopathy and psychopathy. However, most narcissists, in my opinion, are created from their nature versus nurture. So it's usually, whether it is, especially if it's a male narcissist, it could potentially be a very dominant mother, or a mother that has withheld. So you get two very extremes. You get a very dominant mother who berates and talks down to the child, especially if it's a male, and this can sometimes create covert narcissism within males. Then you can also have the fact that you will have a very absent mother, which can also create narcissism. It tends to, from the studies that I've seen, predominantly it does tend to be around the relationship, especially with males, that's to do connected with the mother. So if there is not a very good relationship with the mother, this can create narcissism. However, with women, it's slightly different because it can be whether it's usually an absent mother. So the nurturing side of things are not there. And it's possibly a father who has, or it's somebody that has literally let them get away with everything. So you will have an absent mother and a father that spoils the child with no consequences whatsoever. Or you will have the fact that generally, even if there's a one-parent family, that the child is literally spoilt, given everything they've wanted. And again, no boundaries, no consequences. So they've grown up thinking that they can do what they want, get away with what they want because they've been able to. And that will develop then into adulthood. So to give you a little bit more of an explanation in regards to what can happen with that, in a sense, if there is also the victim of a narcissist, because a lot of people have also said to me, why do people stay? Why do people stay with narcissists or abusive partners? And I see this a lot. I see it in commentary. It's like, if that was me, I would leave. I wouldn't put up with that. And of course, I've spoken about putting boundaries in and making sure that you understand and know yourself so well that when somebody does come in and start to do those things, because it is very hard to spot a narcissist, because they generally come across as a very nice person initially. A covert narcissist will develop very similarly, but what they will tend to do is they draw their supply from being a victim. So they will possibly come in with a victim story, and you can get a bit of both, but generally that's where they will get their supply from. So they will be very much a victim, like everything that's bad has happened to them. And so they get their attention from people that feel sorry for them. They will go out of their way for people, but it will be, then it will become, well, I do this for you, so you have to do that for me type thing. But people stay with narcissists or people that have been abusive because, and again, I'm going to refer to my notes because this is quite technical and I wanted to make sure that I got it right. So A person with damage to the prefrontal cortex might have blunted emotional responses, which I've talked about. For instance, they might even become more aggressive and irritable and struggle to initiate activities. Finally, they might perform poorly on tasks that require long-term planning and impulse inhibition. So again, this is very similar to narcissistic behavior. There has been numerous studies that support the fact that over time, a narcissist's brain undergoes structural changes that affect the frontal lobe. However, this can also occur with victims of narcissistic abuse. So it can change the structural makeup of your brain. And this is most people by now are aware that continued trauma results in PTSD or complex PTSD. Which you'd think is enough of a reason to leave an abusive partner, which is what I have just said, what I hear people saying, you know, why do they not leave? I don't understand. If that was me, I would leave. Well, let me explain to you some of the reasons why. So most people, sorry, I've just said that. So what people don't realize is that these repeated traumatic injuries shrink something called the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and learning, whilst enlarging the I never get this name right, amygdala, which is responsible for fear, guilt, envy, shame, and grief. So what happens when you experience a trauma is that your brain, in a sense, it kind of imprints on the trauma. It doesn't matter when this happened in your life. It could be from childhood. And there have been studies to say that sometimes it can even happen if there's a trauma in the womb. So say, for example, if you're somebody that's pregnant and you've suffered abuse, the baby can actually feel that trauma in the womb. And it imprints, in a sense. So this is kind of on like layman's terms, in a sense. So your brain almost like imprints on that trauma. So the hippocampus is vital for short-term memory. So after which then it is transferred to long-term memory or forgotten. So what will happen is, for example, if something happens to you, that's an immediate in your short-term memory. And then if it believes that it's relevant, it will transfer it into your short-term memory. Or if it's something like, for example, when we're walking around, we take in everything, but we don't remember everything. And that's because the amygdala gets rid of things. So it will put in your long-term memory what they think is relevant, and anything else just gets discarded. And that's why when you, like people like myself who go through the menopause, that's being affected. So that's why I can't remember certain things that I would normally, probably 6 months or a year ago, I would remember. And this is the same for people that struggle with PTSD or complex PTSD. So a study, so then this says, so your learning is very much based around short-term memory. So if this becomes damaged, you cannot retain the information. A study done by a team of University of New Orleans and Stanford students found that patients with extreme high levels of baseline cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and large numbers of PTSD symptoms had the greatest decrease in the hippocampal area, and that's the volume of all time. So this basically is saying that if you suffer from continued abuse, your brain actually does become affected by this. It changes the structure of the brain. So for people that think, oh, it's just very simple, why don't you just leave? It's because your brain is being affected, and it affects your memory recall. So this means the longer you stay with an emotionally abusive partner, the more deterioration you can expect from your hippocampus, which results in enhanced feelings of confusion, cognitive dissonance, and abuse amnesia. So this is why you have this ability to stay with somebody, because especially if they then flip. So like with what narcissists will do is they will give you this abuse, but then they will flip that, and then they will start love bombing again. And there will this be perpetual state of heightened state of stress, because you're never going to quite know what is happening next. When is the next onslaught coming? So when you get the feel-good factor, when they start being nice to you again, it's like, again, your brain resets itself, in a sense, imprints on the fact that, okay, this is good. So then what can happen is that you start then seeking out, and you will find yourself going, I just want it to get back to the way it was in the beginning. And you'll believe that they're in there somewhere, that maybe something is happening that's causing them to be like this. Maybe if you're better, maybe if you don't antagonize them, or if you don't do the things that you're doing, they will go back to being that lovely person again. Well, unfortunately, that won't happen. The only time they will go back to being that person again is if they think that they're losing you and they're not ready to let you go yet. So they will just hoover you back in again. So it basically means the longer you stay with them, the more deterioration there is. Narcissists keep their victims in a constant state of panic and fear, which in turn causes their victims to react from their amygdala, it's called the reptilian brain. The amygdala controls the breathing, heart rate, fear, hate, lust, and love, which are primal emotions. So you're constantly in a fight or flight state, basically. And your brain is being so affected by the abuse that, in a sense, it doesn't know whether it's coming or going. So if you imagine like your heart rate, your breathing, so your anxiety levels are on the rise all the time. And that's why, again, when they go back into love bombing stage, you come down and you're not feeling those things anymore, albeit that you might have a little part of you that's, in a sense, waiting, but you'll want to feel that way. You'll want to feel the nice stuff. So you'll then start changing your behavior to stop them from losing their temper, from doing things, because that's how your body's reacting. It's also responsible for the fight or flight response. So victims of abuse live in this heightened state, which is what I've just said. Over time, the amygdala remembers the things we feel, see, touch, and hear. And the more traumatic the experience, the more predominant the memory becomes. This is why when there is a subliminal hint of anything that's caused these feelings, which we call a trigger response, it sets off our flight or fight response. So our brain has imprinted on the trauma before this results in you reenacting your escape routines. So basically what happens then, even when you come out of a relationship, if you're in a situation that triggers a thought or a feeling that's what happened before in the traumatic relationship, it immediately enacts your escape response. So whatever your escape response is, and that doesn't literally mean like escaping, it means whatever you do to stop that feeling. So this is when people can self-harm, people enact out behaviors. Some people appease their abusive partner, might even go back to an abusive partner because the partner's come in love bombing them again. All the things that you, in a sense, know to do because your brain recognizes it. Doesn't understand the difference between, say, eating a lovely yummy ice cream and the feel-good factor that gets to, okay, when I self-harm, it takes away that feeling. Again, as much as even when you're going through a traumatic experience, your brain doesn't understand the difference from you're walking down this dark alley, okay, don't walk any further, this could be dangerous, something could be happening here, to I'm in an abusive relationship, or even something a lot milder where it's like I'm fearful of going into a new job. It doesn't understand, it just knows the feeling and what it's connected to. So if you're feeling, say for example, even if you want to go into a new job or you want to leave that relationship, creates anxiety, your brain will start giving you messages and signals to create you to do something to not do that, because that's going to be scary. Even though you want to leave, it is still going to be very scary to leave. So you will end up staying. And that is all to do with your, in a sense, your brain makeup, the way that your brain has become so traumatized by the abuse. Even after you've left an abusive relationship or situation, survivors suffer with PTSD, complex PTSD, phobias, learnt behavior, panic attacks, and so much more. And this is due to an overactive amygdala, which was created from the abuse you suffered. So for those people who beat themselves up about that, they feel, and I've certainly had this a lot with clients, that they feel very weak or they have shame in the fact that they stayed. This will hopefully help you understand that it's not just you, it's your brain has actually changed. and it's creating you to make decisions that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily normally make, and stay in situations that perhaps on the outside, when you're looking in, you possibly would never believe you would have done before. The good news is this can be changed. You can actually create your amygdala to actually not be so overactive, which is what is happening. It's just become very, very overactive. So what you can do is some things here is meditation is very good. Yoga, speaking to a professional to work through and heal from the trauma is obviously going to be number one for me. And obviously I have to say that because I'm in that field, but you can do that alongside things like yoga, meditation, work on ways to reduce your stress levels, doing healthy things you enjoy, not things that are our distraction. These are healthy things like getting out in nature, you know, going for a walk in the woods or going and sitting on the beach, things that just create a healthy environment for yourself. Magnesium actually has also been known to help this as well. Eating healthily. And I think the main thing, the biggest thing is don't be hard on yourself. And don't allow people to be hard to you. When you get people that say, oh, if that was me, I would have left. I wouldn't have put up with that. There's every chance that they might have done, due to the fact that, like I just said, this is actually a lot of it down to the brain and how the brain changes and takes in information, especially under stress and trauma. So there are many of us, and I have certainly had this myself. I've certainly had this with clients where clients are even shocked that they've put up with something. And this is why. So don't beat yourself up. Think yourself proud, you know, to be proud of the fact that you've got out of that situation. But if you're somebody that is in that situation right now, don't be hard on yourself. And what I would say is try and reach out to somebody to support you through this, because I do understand it is not a simple case of, like I've just said, I'll just leave. A lot of people have children, a lot of people are scared. So if you are watching this video and you are in that situation, then please try and reach out to somebody to help you. Nobody deserves to be in a situation like that, male or female, nobody. And there are, like I say, this is not just about male narcissists, there are female narcissists too who do abuse men. You know, so, you know, please try and reach out to somebody and get some support. Do not allow them, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you feel that it's early on, don't allow them to isolate you. You know, stick with the people that know and love you, because they will be your best source of support and they will keep you grounded. But yeah, so I hope this video has helped you. Like I say, the best thing is please be kind to yourself. I see so many people and hear so many people beat themselves up about situations like this. And if you're somebody that's ever judged somebody, then just think for a minute. You know, most people don't choose to stay in an abusive relationship, but something keeps them in there. And hopefully this video will help you understand why that happens. It is not just a simple case of they're just putting up with something. So yeah, so I'm sorry that I'm not doing as many videos as what I was doing in the beginning. Work has gone a bit crazy, and so I'm trying to work as much, and I obviously have on my other channel as well, but I will be back and I will be doing try and do a video once a week. I was doing 2, but I just can't keep up with it. So I will try and do a video once a week. And again, if you have any ideas of things that you would like me to talk about, I do have a list that I'm going to be going through, but if you have anything, please drop it in the comments below and I will add it to my list and I will start going through those videos. Don't forget to, if you enjoy this, please give this a thumbs up because it really does help. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. And if you want to contact me via email, that is in the description box below. If you'd like to buy me a cuppa, that also helps. And again, the description box is below. So yeah, so that being said, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Stay safe and just know that, you know, there are people out there that there are places to go to support you. So just please look after yourself. Okay, so take care. Bye-bye.